Welcome to the Noir Poise podcast, where wisdom is power is more than just a motto.
It's our way of life. While we don't claim to have all the answers, we're dedicated to delving deeper into different topics through meaningful conversations. As a duo, we bring different viewpoints to the table, enriching our joint journey towards growth and poise.
Join us as we explore and unlearn to relearn while striving to navigate life with poise. I'm a believer that anything you value or anything that is worth something to you should be maintained in order for it to thrive or operate in the most effective way. And I view that in the sense of relationships with people as well as materialistic items, right? If we have a clothing item that we love, you're going to follow the washing instructions. If you have a vehicle that you love, you're going to make sure you change the oil when it's supposed to be changed, check the tires and the brakes and so on and so forth, just to make sure you maintain that vehicle. And similarly to those materialistic things, I have learned the importance of applying maintenance to relationships in my life. And to me, what that looks like comes in different forms, but what I tend to apply, because it's the easiest to apply in a lot of my relationships, is meaningful conversations, dialogue that's going to allow me to understand the person a little bit better, to understand their background, their current mental state, what they may be going through, who they are as a person at the core of them. And that then leads me to figure out how I can love them appropriately and love them according to what they need, because everyone needs different type of love. So I wanted to ask you, what does maintenance look like to you? When you think of maintenance, what do you think of?
Periodic adjustments, seasonal adjustments. So using the car as an example, you know that every 3 months or every 3,000 miles, you're supposed to get an oil change.
Mm-hmm.
Or before the winter comes, you get
Depends if it's synthetic or not. Just
right.
synthetic oil or not.
Or,
but yeah, go ahead. I get what you
or
mean.
before the cold season, you might want to change your tires or just take a closer look at your tires.
Mm-hmm.
I see maintenance as something that embodies those examples where you're consistently checking in to make sure that whether it's a relationship or a car, it's operating at its efficient level.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would describe maintenance. And a long time ago, I learned that anything that's not growing is dying.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for any type of relationship to flourish, I think there has to be some kind of maintenance. Like, have you ever been with or known someone where you think you're really cool and all that, but then when you take all the distractions away, you're like, okay, this is kind of awkward.
Yeah.
I think that's an example of, although you're spending time with someone, you're not really getting to know them.
Yeah.
If you remove all of the distractions, it just becomes awkward.
Right.
And I think that's the importance of consistently doing things to maintain and grow the relationships you have. I would say what was the most surprising thing to me about just considering relationship maintenance is that it applies to every single relationship you have.
Yeah. Because a lot of people will think like it's just whoever you sleep with at night.
Yeah.
No, it's every relationship, because like you said, you'll get to a point where you're like, wait, what is this relationship based off of?
Right.
And it doesn't even have to be anything crazy, because I think a lot of people will often hear a conversation like this and be like, it sounds like mad work,
Yeah.
And I don't blame them for thinking that off bat, because that's how I viewed it in the beginning, where I was just like, oh my God, I got to keep doing all this work to maintain all of these relationships. It's draining. I have my own life. They have their own lives, so on and so forth. But I've learned that it actually isn't that hard. Yeah, there are hard seasons. There may be hard conversations. There may be hard moments. But if it's maintained regularly, the problem becomes very minimal.
Yeah.
Just like a vehicle. If you maintain your car, one, you'll probably notice a problem early on before it's actually a bigger issue. And two, you end up spending less money on it. Like that's how I view it with relationships now. And again, it could be simple. Like for me, that's sometimes a random hit up. Some people in my life were voice note kind of relationships. Some people in my life, I'll call you on video. Some people in my life were texters. Some people in my life, we may not hit each other up at all, but when we link up, it's a celebration. We catch up. We have intimate, in-depth conversations that make up for that lost time. And then there's some people in my life where I see you and I'm with you on a regular basis. Like there's different type of relationships, and I've learned to appreciate my relationships for what they are rather than trying to make them what I'd like them to be or make them what I have with another person. And the way I got to that was by doing the simple maintenance rather than trying to apply the same maintenance to every single person, and knowing that everyone's different. Everyone has different lifestyles. Everyone's, at different points in their life, but appreciating what it is that you have with that person and maintain that. And as it flourishes, it flourishes. So it can be as simple as like, you thought of that person that you care about. Hey, I thought of you. Hope everything's good. Just sending some love. I hope you know that I value you. Like something real simple. That is a form of maintenance, believe it or not, because now you've let that person know what you feel, because they don't know what you're thinking. So if you don't hit up a friend for like 5-6 months, if they're the type of person where they're like, I don't talk to so-and-so, then they don't know that you think of them or you care about them. Like everyone's different, So I've just learned to operate in the most authentic way while trying to be as authentic in the person's way as well.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
And I would even add on to that, maintenance doesn't always look the same.
Yes, it doesn't.
So there's some maintenance that, yes, it is going to be more time consuming or energy consuming than other type of maintenance. Going back to the car example, if you just got to go in for an oil change, you're in there for 15 minutes,
Right.
Probably tops, and
Right.
then you leave and you go about your day. But you know that if you need some kind of work done on your car, you might block out a couple of hours of the day or drop off your car and have to call
Yeah,
a
or
lift.
sometimes they need to hold it down for a weekend.
Right.
Like
So
that's just what it is.
maintenance looks differently, and I'm glad that you gave those examples, because sometimes you do have to have those in-depth or intimate conversations, and other
Right.
times it's literally just showing someone, I
I'm
thought about
here.
you.
Yeah. Like just letting them know that I'm here,
Yeah.
Or even if it's not I'm here, but FYI, I appreciate you
Right.
for this random thing, or just for being you, or a simple thought of you. I want you to know I love you.
Yeah.
Like little things like that, I think is maintenance in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I think of all the relationships that I've valued over the course of my life, it's been because of those little random maintenance that was done, where someone clearly showed that they thought about me, or I thought about someone else and I was able to reach out to them and let them know that I just wanted to say hello or ask them how their day was going. You'll be surprised at how a lot of relationships develop because of that. And it doesn't have to be someone that you barely know. It could be your siblings. Back to what I was saying about something that surprised me with just considering the topic of relationship maintenance is how it can be done with everyone.
Right.
So growing up, of course, like I was close with my father, my mother, my brother, my sister. I was close with all of them. So I never thought that as close to them as I believed I was, or I believe I am, I never thought that that type of relationship needed maintenance, let alone our type of relationship. So there were times where I knew you, you knew me. Like, what else is there to do? You know? But you can always apply maintenance to whether it's a close personal relationship or someone who's just an acquaintance or someone you barely know. You could always add some kind of maintenance.
So what led you to recognize that though? Because I think this is a topic that a lot of people don't realize until it's too late. So what made you realize like, oh, no matter how close I am to someone, or at least how close I think I am to someone, I still need to maintain these relationships by constantly growing with them or understanding how they're growing. What led you to understand that?
I realized with your help
Oh, okay.
that I was growing into someone that the people I love didn't know about. And naturally, it just made me feel a little distant. So we had this conversation several times where you would notice I would act a little differently around certain people, where if a certain topic came up, I wouldn't really say how I really felt. I would kind of sugarcoat things to, to fit the relationship. But I didn't realize it until, we had this conversation that I was showing people my old self while trying to become my new self.
Deep.
And at some point, it got really tiring. I didn't realize that's why I was tired, but I felt like I wanted to seclude myself more,
Yeah.
just naturally be apart. So when I realized this, I always like to flip things. I couldn't help but think to myself, I wonder if the people I care about are also doing the same thing.
Yeah. That's
So-
what I would have wondered. Like, are they showing me their old self too? Like,
Yeah.
are we all just kind of,
I think naturally we have just an autopilot mode.
Yeah, I get that.
I think a lot of people do that. And when I started applying maintenance to relationships, I noticed that both parties, meaning me and the other person, we would feel a little bit more relieved. Almost as if, okay, I can show you my real self now. I
Yeah.
can talk about things that are not just surface level,
Yeah,
like work
yeah.
or what's going on in the world or with celebrities, sports, like all those things are fine. But I got tired of having those conversations because they were always just surface level.
Yeah.
So I think realizing that I was changing and I wasn't able to change with my loved ones was the real eye opener for me.
Got you. And was that the same moment that you realized it with me too? Because we've had this conversation. So I'm aware of you mentioning about like, other people outside of me, so on and so forth. But obviously I know you because we're growing together or we're learning together or you share what you're learning, so on and so forth, or how you're, coming into your true authentic self. But it makes me wonder, did you in that moment also recognize the importance of applying maintenance to our relationship, or did that come earlier or later, or are you still realizing that?
I think that came a little earlier.
Okay.
And the difference is I always felt that as a friend, we were always growing and we were always applying maintenance because we talk all the time. I didn't realize that the couple aspect of us was lacking. Because we were always good friends, I didn't realize that, okay, there's the friendship aspect and then there's the husband and wife aspect, the emotional aspect. I've shared this with you before that I think for a long time, I took our special connection for granted, meaning that once it's there, it's there. And I didn't think that I needed to do or we needed to do any work to maintain that.
Right.
It's kind of like using the analogy of the promised land, where we paint this picture of the promised land. When I finally get there, that's when I get to rest. But in reality, there's still work to do in the promised land. And I felt that getting married to you was like arriving to the promised land. And after that, there's nothing else I needed to do. And it wasn't until I noticed that we didn't start drifting apart, but it wasn't the same, that it really hit me that just because you have something special doesn't mean you can never lose it. And I think that's when I really started to apply more maintenance to our relationship.
I love that you said that, and I want to sit on that for a little bit because I think that's the part of relationship maintenance that people have to recognize, that everyone gets busy with life. Like you said, we start to move on autopilot where we're operating physically, but we're not really connecting on a mental and emotional level all the time. Especially if you're parenting and you're working and you have, your duties as a significant other. You may have family responsibilities. You may have personal goals that you're working on. You may be trying to correct your health and working out. You may be running businesses. Like, there's only 24 hours in the day. And in those 24 hours, we often get caught up with the day-to-day things that need to be done because there's so much that needs to be done, especially living in New York. Like, there's no rest period because it's all about, okay, how am I going to get this money? Because life is so expensive here. So in order to live comfortably, you kind of have to have that hustle mentality. And I think that is what we have to realize in order to pause and start applying the maintenance, because a lot of people will think, although I mentioned earlier that a maintenance could be like a simple text or a call or I thought of you, so on and so forth. Yeah, that is. And maintenance applies differently depending on the type of relationship. So if we're talking about an intimate relationship, there are different measures of maintenance that needs to be applied. And we often think that it's just those simple maintenance things that are enough. You know what I mean? Although, yes, there are seasons where that may be more than enough, but you can't consistently keep applying the same maintenance and expecting things to grow
Yeah.
or to change. Like in a relationship, sometimes you have to pause for a second and be like, Dag, when was the last time I did this for him? Or I used to do this for her a lot when we were dating. When was the last time I did that? I used to buy her flowers every week. When was the last time I stopped by a store and bought flowers? Because you may realize, oh, we're living together. You know, like she knows what it is. She knows I love her. I tell her every day. But it's those simple little things sometimes like you don't realize that you have stopped doing that can be done to apply that type of maintenance in relationships like ours, where you think like, okay, we're always learning with each other, we're always growing, you know where I stand, you know which direction I'm going, vice versa, we're doing things together all the time, we're spending time. But it's things like that that I think we forget to do, and I have to ask myself that sometimes when it comes to you, because with other people, yeah, I apply maintenance in the best way fit that I see for them. But when it comes to you, that's a different type of ball game, in my opinion. Like I have to actively stop myself and say, Dad, what does he need right now? Like, what can I do to make him have a good day today? Or the weekend's coming up. He's been working a lot. He's tired. What can we do this weekend that'll make him feel a little bit joyful, or like he's living, or like the work he's doing is worth it? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's things like that that it's easy to forget about and not realize that as you forget about all those little things every single day and time keeps on passing and both individuals are operating on autopilot, and you get to the destination and you realize like all the things that have gotten us on the plane to begin with, we don't even got them. Like we don't even got them anymore now that we're at the destination. We done left the suitcase at home. We were literally just riding on autopilot and we got to the destination we wanted to get to, but there's nothing there that made it that much special.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a constant reminder how relationships really work the best, in my opinion, when you're thinking of the other person, when you're willing to service that other person. Because if I'm willing to serve you and I'm thinking of you all the time and you're doing the same for me, we both kind of get the things that we need and want. Not saying that you don't do things for yourself or have time to do other stuff with other people, but in our relationship at least, I think it's those things that has worked so far and I want us to keep applying, is remembering the other person, not thinking that like, nah, she good, or no, he's good with that. He does it all the time. He'll handle it. And to be honest with you, that's why sometimes I'll be like, you know what? I don't want to go outside in the 30 degrees. You know how I feel about the cold. But I'm like, let me just take out the trash for him. He deserves someone to take out the trash for him. It's little things like that that I think sometimes like, it's like, oh, you know, I'm trying to think of you in the smallest way possible that I can think of you in this particular moment. Because when you're caught up with life, there's some days where it's but so much that you could really do. So little things like that just add to the big picture.
It's so true, because there are countless of times when I naturally think to myself, oh, she's going to do that. She likes to fix the bed. She'll do that. Like,
Yeah.
Even the other day, I got out of my meeting and I walked past the bedroom and you didn't get a chance to make
Yeah,
the bed
bro.
yet. And my natural thought was, she likes to do it. She's going to do it. She's going to come back. She just didn't get to it yet. And I literally had to stop myself and say, why don't you do it? Why don't you just take a moment and do that? Take at least that off her plate.
Yeah.
Or it could be with anything.
And that was helpful, just so you know.
Why?
Like I walked by the bedroom and I was just like, oh, thank God. Because the reason why that happened, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but our toddler's teething. And any mom knows, like, it ain't easy. Especially she's still breastfeeding. So she became even more attached to the milk because it's a soothing thing for her. So the nights have just been ridiculous. It's almost like we have a newborn, at least for me. I feel like I have a newborn all over again. I'm up like every hour or two. And of course, being a parent, you don't sleep for the rest of your life. But that on top of everything else that's been happening and us trying to be disciplined with recording regularly and applying certain things that we talked about we want to apply towards our goals, time has been super limited for us. So when I walked by the bedroom, I was just like, oh man, he doesn't even know what he did. Because I wanted to fix it, but I was like, there's but so much time. So thank you. That was appreciated.
You're
I
very
said all that just to say thank you.
you're very welcome. The point I was trying to make is you'll be surprised at how the little you can do could transform a relationship.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily me making the bed, but it was a gesture
Right.
to show like I'm thinking of you. I
thinking of
know
you.
to me this might not be important, but to you it is. So I'm going to make that effort. That's one of the golden things that I think a lot of people fail to realize can help your relationship. It's just always thinking of the other because it
Yeah.
ends up being honestly, I've noticed that it ends up being ping pong
Yeah.
where I'm showing you that I'm thinking of you, which naturally makes you a little more thankful
Yeah.
because it gives you time, it gives you somewhat energy back and it makes you want to show your appreciation.
Right.
And then when you do it for me, I do it for you. And it
Right.
just keeps going back and forth. The next thing you
Yeah.
know, we're just basking in
Yeah, like it's a
appreciation.
win-win situation, to be honest with you. And one thing I've also learned is that form of maintenance is great, like thinking of the other person and servicing them, so on and so forth, but also having certain conversations. Because one thing I often notice looking at, other relationships or other people outside in the world or whatever the case is, people will often wait until a specific conflict in order to have a certain type of conversation or in order to start an act or gesture. And I feel like that's what the world has taught us, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mentality, where we don't stop to realize, yeah, things are great. How can I make it greater?
Right.
Sometimes we continue just doing the same exact things and not stopping to realize how the person you're with is evolving and maybe you should shift a little bit. That's one factor. And then sometimes we just stop doing certain things because you get into like a comfortable state. So that mentality of if it ain't broke, don't fix it often leads to you being broke and having to fix it.
Yep.
And by that time, it's so much work to fix it that it drains you out. If you actually find the way to fix it, it's so draining and tiring, and it becomes even harder than it would have been if you tried before. And then on top of it, it may not even be fixable anymore.
Yep. I just wanted to add on to that and say that applies to every area of life where
Yeah.
preventing an issue is always going to be easier than trying to solve an issue. You're always going to have to use up more energy, more time, more resources to solve that problem versus preventing it at first. One of the issues that I think that plagues relationships is you put limitations on where you should be. So
Elaborate. That's good.
so people think, for example, I've been dating for 5 years. Now is the time to propose. That might not be the case. Why
Right.
did you wait 5 years to
Yeah.
start talking about
Focusing on the
proposals?
time rather than the quality.
Right. Or
I love that you said that.
we're engaged now. So next thing is, planning the wedding, whatever the case is. You should have done that beforehand. Or we're married now and now I'm having issues with you because I'm a night person, you're not a night person, and we can't settle
Yeah,
our
like just the
differences.
simple
Just the
things,
simple
not
things,
having
right?
those conversations to really know where that other
Right.
person stands on
So
things.
now, once you are in an issue, your emotions naturally get involved
Yeah.
even more than before. Versus if it's preventative, you can really sit down and have a conversation. Emotions will always be involved, but it won't be as bad as we're in the midst of a problem and
Right.
now we're trying to solve it. And one thing that I certainly want to add is maintenance is all about consistently having conversations.
Yep.
That's if I had to put
That's
it
the core
put
of
it in
it.
simple terms, that's what it would be.
Yeah.
And when I mean having conversations, I mean asking questions that will lead you to learn about the other person.
Absolutely.
And those questions, they can be repetitive
Every couple months, every
every
couple
couple
years.
months, every couple years, and
Yep.
you'll get a more in-depth answer. Why? Because we as human beings are always growing.
Right.
I
We're always
might
evolving.
realize
At least
something.
we should be always
Right.
growing.
I might realize something now that I didn't realize before, and it
Right.
adds context.
Yeah.
We had an episode about giving grace to one another,
Yeah.
and I shared that one of the things that allowed me to have grace on you even more is just learning about just your upbringing because it was so different than my upbringing. So
Right.
if we didn't have these conversations, I would look at you sideways
Like, what's
each
wrong
time
with
we
this
had a
girl?
disagreement. Like, what's wrong with her?
Yeah,
Because
that's what most people go through.
yeah,
Yeah,
because I'm taking my childhood and trying to apply it
to mine.
to yours. But once I learn certain things, I'm like, okay, I see why she said what she said, or I see why she moved like she moved. I understand it. It's not coming from a malice place. She
Right.
has no ill intentions. So maintenance is all about having those conversations.
Yeah, the hard conversations is a biggie, even with family members and friends. I say this all the time. Let's learn about one another. Let's learn from one another. Because believe it or not, those conversations, you think you're trying to learn about the person, and sometimes you actually end up learning about yourself in just hearing the person explain something, or it may bring an enlightenment to you where you're just like, oh, I never thought of that. Like hearing other people's perspectives about things allows you to grow in a different type of way. But those hard conversations, like you said, are really the core of maintaining relationships because we often live on assumption. We do it at work, we do it with loved ones, we do it in our marriages, we do it with our children or parents. We just live based on assumptions that we had from an experience with that person years ago. So those hard conversations, man, when I tell you have them,
Yeah, they're worth it. Yes,
they're so hard in the moment sometimes, depending because they may be triggering. They may cause your spouse to respond in a way that you don't want to hear, but at least you know the truth now. At least you know how the person thinks, and now you can have a conversation about it and understand each other's perspectives. But I promise you, if you have those hard conversations in moments where they don't need to be had versus you're in conflicting situations and you're having hard conversations and both individuals are emotional, that come on, that's like a tornado.
I would compare it to getting past a barrier. When you started asking me, well, you've always been this way, but when you really started asking me all these hard questions, I'm not gonna lie, I was annoyed.
Yeah, most people are.
Yeah, I can see it in their faces. I think I
And I
told you
don't be giving
sometimes,
a
like,
damn.
maybe chill a little bit.
Nope.
But when you first started asking me those hard questions, I would get annoyed. But now I understand it's because I didn't want to face, my reality. But I would compare it
That's interesting.
to going to the gym. When you go to the gym after a long stretch of not working out, you get sore so quickly. You could barely move. You do everything 10 times slower because you're sore. But once you start seeing the results,
Yeah, it's
and
worth it.
it's worth it.
Yep.
And after seeing the results, that motivates you to go back to the gym to do more. And the more you practice, the better you get, and you're not sore as much.
Yeah.
I would say it's the same thing where those tough questions, yes, they might be annoying, they might trigger you, they might cause you to be emotional, but once you pass that barrier, I can almost promise or guarantee that it's going to be worth it.
That self growth is it for me.
Yeah,
Though.
I don't think there's any bad that can come out of it. And when I say bad, I mean long-term bad. Like you might have experiences where the more you get to know someone, the more you see maybe this person's not for you. And that might seem bad at the moment, but
And that's why I think it's good to
you're
have these the hard conversations early on rather than waiting till you're engaged or married. Like,
yeah.
don't wait. Like, ask some questions early on because then it gives you a little bit of an idea of how your future with this person may look like.
Yeah.
What are going to be some of the constant conversations that we have? Where am I going to have to back down on? Or where will I have to maybe lead in if necessary, or push you towards, for the betterment of yourself in our future. When you have those conversations later on, I think that's what often leads to the mentality of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Because people get accustomed to just like the standardized relationship that they have, and they start to value the quantity of their relationship, like how long they've been together versus the quality of those years that they've been
Yeah.
together. You know this about me, but like whenever people are like, "Oh, how long you've been married?" How like that is always a thing for me because I'm like, who cares how long they've been together or how long they've been married? What I want to know is how happy
Yeah.
are you in your relationship. Like, don't get me wrong, everybody has their own path and journey, and to each his own. Everyone does things their own way. But this year was a year where I'm just like, all of these couples are getting divorced and they've been together. Like, these were couples that people were praising for the amount of years that they were together. But that's the problem that people don't realize, that sometimes it's really important to focus on how long have you been happy in this marriage rather than how long have you been with this person. Because the same way we say we can easily operate on autopilot individually, how do you think that happens when two people get together? They're both busy. They both have their own things. So it's easy to get into that state. I'm not saying it's not, because we've gone through it. There are times where we have to catch ourselves regularly. But the point of relationship maintenance is to stop and recognize that, okay, let me shift somewhere. Let me shift somewhere so this can benefit my relationship in the future. And having those hard conversations will do that, in my opinion.
I've heard a lot of couples in their 50s or 60s say this exact thing, where they loved each other, they got married, they had children. You know how the family life goes, is literally
You blink
nonstop rush.
and it's over.
And it's not until their last child moves out, they look at each other and they say,
Who are you?
"Who are you?"
Yeah, that's common.
And that's when you read about people in their 50s getting divorces.
That's what happens.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
It's not always about, infidelity or some, financial crisis. Sometimes
They're just so
life
different.
life was so busy and they didn't do maintenance that when that time came, when all their children left and they actually had more time, they looked at each other and it was kind of too late.
Yeah, that's always been my thought. Like, those are the things that I think of all the time when it comes to our relationship, and what motivates me to just keep trying even when I'm like, tag, I'm tired. I'm like, you know what? I could be doing something, in regards to our goals or the business during these hours, but I always try to designate when I'm like, you know what? Let's spend this quality time together, because those hard conversations happen within the quality time that you have with that person. And sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of couples don't have the chance to have that time because they're running around like chickens with no head, just trying to maintain their lives and the lives of their family members and stuff like that. So it's important to just take a breather, take a pause, and believe it or not, relationship maintenance also can look like finding alone time for yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I had to learn too. Like, as much as I love being around you, to be honest with you, and I sent you a meme earlier today that literally said, like, my wife's toxic trait is she wants to spend alone time because she likes her peace and quiet and alone time, but she wants me there in her alone time, just not really bothering her as she's in her alone time. That's me in a nutshell. Like, I love being around you, but I also love being with me.
Yeah.
So I had to realize, and I'm still realizing it because I don't personally feel like I get enough of it, but I've always been an introverted person. I need time to like collect data and analyze my life and so on and so forth. I need that time for myself to be alone. And when I have that, I then am more energized to then apply the necessary maintenances that we need for our relationship. So for some people out there, that may be the case, and you guys can come back together and be refreshed, and you're not as cranky, you're not as irritated by each other, and that will even help to have those hard conversations when you do spend the quality time. You know what I mean? Like, maintenance looks different in different seasons, in different scenarios, to different couples. But the point is, find what is necessary for your relationship to maintain it. And not just maintain it, but to get it to its most efficient capacity is what I would say. Because that's what's going to keep your relationship going. That's going to keep the enjoyment and the fulfillment of the relationship. At least for me, that's what I've learned.
Yeah. Just like when two people get together and they have a child, that child is unique. Doesn't share the same DNA with any other person in the world.
They're not even
with their
the
siblings.
same as their siblings sometimes. Yeah.
That's how I've learned to view our relationship. Where I'm not comparing where we are with where someone else is or where
that's
they
the best
say.
way to look at it.
I think that's when a relationship really flourishes. It's when two people are together and they're being authentically them. So whatever you feel that works within your relationship to
Be
do
true
the
to who you
maintenance,
are.
Be true to who you are. Like for us, we're not big TV people, but
Yeah.
some people, maintenance might look like
Let's watch
Friday
a movie
night
and laugh
movies
together.
and
Yeah.
laugh together.
Do it.
We're not
Do
people.
it.
We're not people who like to go out and in public around a big crowd. Maybe that's what some people need.
Yeah.
Maintenance looks different
According to who you are.
according to who you are. So another thing I want to say, based off of what you just said, is sometimes relationship maintenance is also individual maintenance.
Yes.
It's not always about, I'm tired, but I'm going to do this for my love, my
Yeah.
partner. But sometimes it's, let me get myself together so that I
Right.
can be better presented for my partner.
Yeah, my partner can experience the better version of
Yeah.
me rather than the drained version of me. That's what we've been reiterating over and over again, because for me, that's been a profound lesson in life, is understanding that your relationship cannot work if you don't. Your relationship cannot work if you're not also working on yourself. So, all the things that you can apply to your relationship, if you feel like it's necessary to apply to yourself individually, you need to do that as well. Because oftentimes, at least this is what I've learned from our experience, is because I'm trying to do everything for everyone else rather than stopping and realizing that I need this too, I then come to you half in a sense, because now I'm irritated that I haven't gotten to do some things for myself that sustain me, but I'm doing it for you. I'm not doing it for you to the best of my ability now because I'm drained, I'm tired, so on and so forth. And I think that happens a lot. So again, self-reflection, the self-work, the self-growth, everything starts from self. While the title of this episode is called Relationship Maintenance, you cannot maintain a relationship if you're not finding ways to maintain your authentic, true self. And that goes from both parties that are in that relationship. And while I'm saying that to you guys, that has really been my takeaway throughout this whole season, was how every episode, everything we talked about, whether it had to do with relationships with your significant other, relationship with family, relationship with self, the reality is everything starts from the foundation of you and being true to who you are, however that may look. So we've talked about self-reflection and authenticity so many times in different episodes. It's been mentioned, and I don't think that's a coincidence. We don't believe in coincidences anymore. So my takeaway from this entire season has been just that everything that I'm doing in life, whether that's for my family, for my friends, for my career, for my personal goals for myself, it all starts with me being true and authentic to who I am. And in order to do that, I have to be honest with myself. I have to be vulnerable enough to be honest with myself. And I have to accept the things about myself that are good and bad, the things that I don't like the way it looks and sounds. But as soon as I accept those things and I start to apply techniques and things that will allow me to evolve in a positive way, it will then start to reflect in other aspects of my life, in my relationship with loved ones, in my goals, in my physical appearance, so on and so forth. I think it really starts internally. And if anyone listening takes anything from all the episodes that we covered this season, for me, I would hope that that's what you got. That you understood that you cannot be your best at anything if you don't first find you. What would be yours?
I was hoping I wouldn't have to follow that. I thought that was great.
No, I think it's only right that we give the people what we learn. Because I mean, while we're talking about this, we constantly say it. We don't have answers.
Yeah.
We're figuring it out as we go through our own experiences, through research of what other people think, and then giving our opinions, learning from other people's perspectives. So I think it's important that people hear what we gain from it. If we're providing this information, it's only right that we let them know what we're gaining from the information we're providing.
Where could I start? I think the greatest lesson I've learned this season is that we already have the answers, but it takes a conversation to dig it up. So what we shared, yes, we did a lot of research. We found some good quotes. We looked at what psychiatrists or we went through surveys, but the best things that we've said all came from the heart. I think that's the importance of conversation. Conversation is like a key to a door where the more you have it, or once you have it, it unlocks so much. And these conversations have allowed me to meditate so much on our relationship, meditate on my childhood experiences, my adult experiences, why I react the way I react, why I think the way I think. And this has been, definitely a different year for us.
Yeah,
But I think internally, I've grown so much,
definitely.
especially in the last couple of months since we started doing this.
Yeah, I feel like this has like really impacted you in a dope way,
Thank
and
you very
it's
much.
it's amazing to witness, honestly. Because like I said to you not too long ago, like after we have these conversations, I see how it impacts you because you then continue on the conversation, not even that same night, but like a day or two later, the next week, and I witness you applying certain things and making certain changes for the better, and it's been dope
Yeah,
to
and
watch you.
I do want to also add that just from a male perspective, I think the approach we had where it's literally an open conversation, it was a judgment free zone, it was a safe space like we spoke about.
Yeah.
I think that really allowed me to be comfortable enough to be vulnerable. And speaking for men, I think that's the number one thing men need emotionally. Sometimes the stereotype is men are lazy, they don't want to do the work, they try to look for the easy way out. But I think it's because men don't know how to either be vulnerable or they believe that there's no safe space for them to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So, for anyone listening right now, if you're looking to, whether it's solo, you're a man looking to just learn more about yourself, or you're in a relationship with a man and you're looking for him to, be more of an open book to you, I would say conversation is key.
Mm-hmm.
It'll help you learn more about him and it'll help him learn more about himself. So I think that was the greatest thing that I learned this
I love
season.
that.
But of course, there are other things such as learning to give yourself grace,
Mm-hmm.
or learning to give your partner grace, um, the importance of being vulnerable. Definitely, I think that was heavy
Game
hitting.
changer.
Yeah, it was definitely a game changer. And last but not least, maintenance is I won't even say a daily thing. Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can do 10 different things in a day that applies, maintenance to a relationship. But every opportunity you get to do some kind of maintenance for yourself or do some kind of maintenance for within your relationship, do it. Those small actions pay dividends.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. This is the close of season 1. Glad we did it. Applause entered here. This is not what we ever envisioned ourselves doing as private individuals, but as we've mentioned before, when the calling is greater than your comfortability, you have to choose the calling. So here we are, and we're hoping to see you here again on season 2. We got a whole lot of
A lot of unpacking to do.
So we'll see you then. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you. We appreciate you. Follow the page on Instagram for any updates on what's to come. We are honored to be doing this and we do not take it lightly.
Love you all.
Thank you for spending your time with us. We hope you gained some knowledge today that'll promote poise in your life. We have new episodes uploaded every Thursday right here, same place, same time. Until next time, you can follow us on Instagram at Noir Poise Podcast to stay connected. That's NOIRPOISED Podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback.
And remember, your wisdom is power.